So, ladies and gentlemen, on today's remote control, we're going to go back to a series of podcasts I started a few weeks ago talking about the Night Gallery TV series of the late 60s, early 70s. Now, we're going to look today at probably the most prominent or the most star-filled of the episodes. It's the Steven Spielberg directed second second installment of the pilot movie, something called Eyes. Now, Eyes stars Joan Crawford as a wealthy woman who is living in a New York high rise, and she's been blind since birth, and she comes up with a scheme to use her personal doctor to perform surgery on her from a donating person of their optical nerves to give her eyesight between 11 and 13 hours. Now, here's the kicker: if she finds someone to donate, that person will be permanently blind, and she's a type of person. She has so much hatred of her life because of being blind from birth and being a type of person who blames God for everything that's gone bad in her life. She doesn't really care about anybody but herself, and in this case, she's going to let one person be blind and have the reputation of another ruined through the surgery. Now, it was directed obviously by a young Steven Spielberg, and this served as a resume for future projects for the young auteur, including Duel and some other TV productions, what obviously led to his very, very outstanding, big screen career as a director, producer, motivator. Now, the character played by Joan Crawford, Claudia Menlo, is a little bit too close to home for me. It's almost like the Spielberg asked Joan Crawford to play herself, because Joan Crawford in her 50s was a tough nut. She had gone through various personal battles. Baby Jane was a few years before. The feud with Betty Davis had re-risen again. She was a strong executive representative for Pepsi. And, the Joan Crawford you see in this, not say it's a parody, but it's pretty close to home from all the books I read about Joan Crawford. She's a no nonsense. If a woman was going to have balls, it'd be Joan Crawford. I mean, she was a ballsy person. She was tough. Now, not to give away the rest of the episode, there's a hapless gambler that donates or will donate his eyes, played by, of all people, the comedic actor Tom Bosley, who was most well known as playing Mr. Cunningham or Mr. C on Happy Days. And the character is going to donate his eyes for a grand sum of $9,000, and that's how much he owes. He's a loan shark for the down and out person he is, making bad bets and stuff like that. Now, the cinematography here, is quite important to the plot. I think Spielberg asked the cinematographers, who were included Robert Batchelor and William Margalis, to give him certain shots that would look at kind of the importance of the transition of Bosley's eyes to Joan Crawford's eyes, and it works in a lot of ways. But having the great character actor Barry Sullivan play Crawford's doctor, who is of two minds. He must hide the fact he's being blackmailed, but he also believes Tom Bosley's character needs to be given an out, to which of course he doesn't take. But there are certain scenes, especially when Tom Bosley is talking to his Lone Star representative. He's on this play swing in the play area, and it goes round and round. See, this episode is a little bit too short, and I'll tell you why. It runs for about 30 minutes, and it's probably one of the longer segments of all three, because it's been padded for syndication through the years. But I think Spielberg was rushed to make it that 30 to 45 minute episode it needed to be. If this was an extended, like a 71-minute movie, I think it would have been better. Spielberg would use more of his growing skills. It would expand on the Crawford character, maybe some backstory, why she was so bitter. Because I'm a visually impaired person, and when I got my eyesight back after going almost totally blind after a diabetic seizure, I was very glad to get my vision back. But if I didn't get it back, I wouldn't be totally bitter because as a diabetic, you pays your money, you takes your chances. But if she's blind from birth, there's some people who are not bitter. They're just glad to be alive, and I like to see some backstory, how she got her fortune, how she got the way she is. Maybe some backstory on the Tom Bosley character. Maybe talk about how he got into the problems. If he was a compulsive gambler or a drug user or whatever. It's very, very, précis version. It's almost like it should be like 68 to about 71 minutes, but it's like anything else. It's so tight. It comes in so quickly and goes out so quickly. It just flies by. And the middle part of this Night Gallery movie needed to be like that. But if it could be redone in a new Night Gallery, I'd like to see a 70-minute episode just based on this. And maybe an older diva could play it, like a Jane Fonda or Lily Tomlin or whatever, somebody of that age group. I'd like to see what it can be done. Now, part one of the three-parter, which was the Cemetery with Roddy McDowall and Ozzie Davis, quite good. And part three with the Escape Route with Richard Kiley and Sam Jaffe, very, very strong as well. And for within the pilot of the Night Gallery movie, all three stand out as 3.5 to 4 star out of 5 episodes. They hold up quite well 50 years after they're done. But I see Joan Crawford, and so much was left behind at Spielberg. He didn't probably have much pull with the producers, being a young director. He did show up later on in a Night Gallery episode called Make Me Laugh with Godfrey Cambridge. Not as strong, but he applied the same style. Now, all three episodes are written by Rod Serling. And because Rod was, at the time, mostly a short story writer, almost 25 to 30 minutes. I know he did 7 Days in May in Planet of the Apes script, which was a little bit longer. It would have been better if this would have been, again, 60 to 70 minutes, and Serling could have expanded, or with a co-writer, expanded on the Crawford character. Because I could probably expand on this movie in my own head right now, because, for example, if the Tom Bosley character was basically, working in a place where Crawford owned, because how would we know that through his lawyer? It's got to be, how did the lawyer find out someone was going to volunteer like that? Did the lawyer have criminal connections? Anyway, these are all questions, but again, you're looking at, again, a 30-minute episode. It is what it is. I give it close to 4 stars out of 5. Again, the only negative is it's too short, but that's like when you go to a circus and you see the performers and they're only perform for 20 minutes, you should expect a 30 or 40. This whole episode is a cautionary tale about how people get into themselves and into money, either bad in a good way. But Joan Crawford should have got an Emmy nomination for this. And maybe when the category changed, best guest performer in a drama, Crawford would chew up scenery like Jaws, man. I've seen some of her performances. She is a tough nut. And, Betty Davis said it best, and I'm going to misquote it or quote it the best I can. You should never talk bad about the dead. Joan Crawford is dead. Good. She was a force to be reckoned with. Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, equals in every way. And if you have the chance, watch the miniseries on the Betty Davis Joan Crawford feud. Will kind of actually give an expansion a little bit on why Joan Crawford was like that on her fictional and non-fictional life. Mommy Dearest as well, something to look at. I'm not a big fan of Joan Crawford because I was never a big fan of these like Barbara Stanwyck and over the top, dramatic divas of the day. Vivian Leigh, same thing. Great actresses all, but just not my cup of tea, no pun intended. So if you have a chance, watch either the Eyes on online or watch the whole movie. But I would suggest first to read about all 3 parts, and then watch the whole movie and leave a comment on my podcast. Get a discussion going. Why I believe I should have been a feature-length version of the Night Gallery, in my opinion, or a 2-parter, maybe a 2-parter. Anyway, on this great day, we're again still flooding in New Brunswick. Be very careful. Watch the barricades. A little shout out to the strikers at the smelter in Baldoon. Be safe up there, guys. It's good to protest, but like I said, I've covered strikes up there before, and it can kind of escalate in a very violent situation. I trust everybody will keep their cool, and there's no corporate entity that's ever respected unionized workers for Baldoon. So if you're disrespected, no surprise there. I mean, we're all sheep in the North Shore. I was a sheep for years for the Irvings. They ran me to death, and I almost died over it, and I almost became the character in their eyes with no eyesight. But the corporate entities really don't respect the workers in North Shore, because it is a heavy industry area, a rough area, and that's what happens. You got to work where you can get the money, and if you can't afford to move to Hollywood, where the hell are you going to work? Smelter, mines, mill, whatever. Anyway, have a good day, ladies and gentlemen. Keep your stick in the ice. Bye.